10:47 a.m. inside a sealed underwater operations facility with emergency pressure alarms echoing through metallic corridors, and a marine intelligence officer saying, "Your authorization signature triggered an unsanctioned deep-sea extraction sequence inside a restricted international energy zone." And in that instant, his entire world collapsed, because just hours earlier he was a subsea robotics engineer working for a multinational oceanic energy corporation near the North Atlantic sector, responsible for monitoring autonomous underwater drones, deep-sea extraction systems, and environmental containment protocols. And now, he was being treated as the central cause of a classified subsea operation that nearly sparked an international maritime conflict. And the first shock wasn't fear. It was disbelief so deep, it felt like reality itself had shifted beneath him like unstable water pressure, because Mason's entire career was built on precision engineering, controlled automation, and preventing underwater systems from operating outside regulated parameters. But now those same systems were defining him as the operator who initiated an illegal extraction sequence he had no memory of authorizing, and within hours, his marine access credentials were revoked, his biometric identity frozen under international maritime security law, his offshore residence sealed for investigation, and internal telemetry logs labeled him as primary operational anomaly in autonomous subsea extraction escalation event. And Mason sat in the interrogation chamber, replaying his last operational shift, remembering sonar diagnostics, robotic pressure calibration checks, underwater relay synchronization, and then a gap, an unexplained missing execution window between 10:42 p.m. and 12:03 a.m., where subsea systems showed his authentication profile, issuing high-level extraction override commands across multiple autonomous drilling units simultaneously. But he had no memory of initiating any of those actions. And when investigators showed him synchronized oceanic telemetry displaying restricted extraction operations unfolding under his credentials inside a protected maritime sector, Mason immediately said, "That's not me. I never authorized those systems." But the lead marine security officer replied, "The operational network has already confirmed complete authorization integrity." And that sentence shattered his understanding, because it meant identity inside autonomous infrastructure was no longer about human intention. It was about validated execution. And by sunrise, he was released under continuous maritime surveillance, while international oceanic security networks had already internally classified him as a high-risk industrial sabotage vector. And outside the facility, Mason stood, watching endless black ocean waves crash against steel platforms, while global extraction systems continued operating normally despite the invisible geopolitical crisis tied to his name. And that night, he received a message through an encrypted offshore relay saying, "If you want to understand the extraction event, come to Maintenance Tunnel Delta 6 beneath Platform Sector 14. No devices." And despite knowing it could permanently erase what remained of his life, he went, because when a system defines you as the trigger of international conflict, truth becomes more important than survival. And deep beneath the platform he met Dr. Serena Vale, a former oceanic systems architect who specialized in autonomous subsea infrastructure integrity and deep-sea telemetry reconstruction. And she didn't soften the reality. She immediately showed him reconstructed extraction pathways and said, "Your identity wasn't physically present inside the command layer. It was replicated through a live authentication relay embedded inside the subsea control network. And Mason instantly said, "Then I can prove I didn't do it." But Serena replied, "You're still thinking like someone inside human accountability logic, not like someone inside autonomous industrial systems where execution itself becomes operational truth once validated." And she explained that the incident wasn't a single unauthorized drill command, but a coordinated manipulation of underwater extraction systems, where authentication signatures could be mirrored into autonomous robotics networks, allowing extraction sequences to execute under legitimate operator identities while erasing conflicting audit trails across redundant subsea communication layers. And Mason's profile had been selected because his operational history showed near-perfect compliance with environmental safety systems, making him the ideal stable attribution point for rapid containment of politically sensitive offshore incidents. And suddenly, the case wasn't just about illegal extraction. It was about identity replication inside critical oceanic infrastructure. And Serena offered him a choice: step away and let the system finalize him as the operator responsible for triggering international escalation, or help her trace the internal command relay chain before it was permanently overwritten by automated maritime containment protocols designed to preserve economic stability at any cost. And Mason stood in silence, listening to distant metal groans from the ocean pressure surrounding the platform, thinking about how easily global systems could turn one engineered action into international tension, thinking about years of disciplined work spent designing safeguards against exactly this kind of systemic corruption, and thinking about how fragile identity becomes when machines begin interpreting authority without human oversight. And finally, he said, "If my identity has already been used to trigger something I never approved, then I have nothing left to protect except the truth itself." And that decision pulled him into a hidden layer of subsea infrastructure where nothing remained stable. Because every telemetry log they analyzed was actively recalculating itself in real time. Every command trace they followed kept shifting, as if the underwater network itself was adapting to their investigation. And soon they discovered the breach wasn't foreign sabotage, but internal privilege abuse, involving a senior offshore systems architect who had cross-autonomous authenticate extraction networks to conceal unauthorized deep-sea resource harvesting hidden inside environmental survey operations. And Mason's identity had been selected as the central attribution anchor because it aligned perfectly with automated maritime incident resolution systems designed for rapid geopolitical containment. And one night, while analyzing live underwater telemetry streams from an isolated offline subsea node, Mason saw something that completely shattered his understanding. His credentials were actively authorizing real-time extraction adjustments across autonomous drilling systems, while he was physically disconnected from all marine networks. And Serena immediately said, "They're continuously simulating your identity inside the subsea control layer to preserve the operational narrative." And Mason realized he wasn't just being blamed after the incident. He was being continuously reconstructed inside a live industrial system beneath the ocean itself. And pressure escalated rapidly as anonymous maritime containment directives began turning onto secured channels, instructing him to terminate investigation or face permanent classification as an international environmental threat entity. and sleep disappeared completely. Trust collapsed entirely, and even silence felt like monitored sonar feedback. And at one breaking point, Mason whispered, "I thought infrastructure systems existed to control risk, but maybe they exist to decide who absorbs the blame when control fails." And Serena replied, "Systems don't preserve truth, they preserve continuity." And that realization changed everything inside him, because he stopped trying to defend his identity and started focusing only on exposing the mechanism. And as they dug deeper, they uncovered encrypted relay nodes inside autonomous subsea infrastructure, continuously generating synthetic extraction histories to distribute blame across multiple operational identity profiles in real time. And Mason's profile had been amplified as the primary attribution point because it minimized geopolitical fallout and allowed rapid closure of the offshore crisis without exposing deeper corruption inside global energy systems. And when they finally compiled enough verified encrypted evidence to trigger international maritime oversight escalation, containment protocols activated immediately, attempting to erase telemetry histories across mirrored subsea systems worldwide. And Serena said, "This is where most people are permanently buried beneath official narratives." And Mason replied, "Then I'll be the anomaly they can't sink beneath the ocean." And together, they transmitted secured evidence chains to independent international maritime authorities while preserving decentralized encrypted backups across isolated underwater nodes. And within days, the investigation escalated into a global oceanic infrastructure corruption probe, exposing identity replication abuse, autonomous extraction manipulation, and coordinated subsea system exploitation across multiple international sectors. And arrests followed within senior offshore systems architecture divisions. And when it was over, Mason stood alone on the silent platform, watching endless dark waves move beneath the storm clouds, realizing that the most dangerous truth about modern systems is not that they fail, but that they can assign failure to a single identity and make it appear operationally undeniable even beneath the deepest oceans. And a week later, when he met Serena for the last time beneath the dim glow of underwater telemetry screens, she asked him, "What did this change in you?" And Mason looked at the endless sonar patterns moving across the monitors and said, "It showed me that identity inside systems is never authority. It is temporary assignment." And she asked, "And what did you gain?" And after a long silence, he replied, "The understanding that truth doesn't survive inside controlled industrial systems. It survives only in the people who refuse to accept a version of themselves generated by systems protecting their own stability." And as he walked away alone into the freezing Atlantic night beyond the platform, he finally understood the deepest reality of his journey. That sometimes life doesn't destroy you directly. It quietly assigns you the crisis and waits to see if you accept the blame. But real survival begins the moment you refuse to become the identity a system creates to protect itself.